What is going on, everybody? It is Dylan with Astrodfs bringing you a new video. Today's video, I'm going over the first look at this Sunday's Week 9 main slate. So we had breaking news today. I'm sure as all of you have seen, Aaron Rodgers is out Sunday against Kansas City. So you have Jordan Love against Kansas City. So that was interesting because we thought we were going to get a really, really good game here. Two great teams. Kansas City's looked a lot shaky, and Green Bay looks very, very dominant. But now that game is ruined for the most part. And we get to see Jordan Love playing an entire game and see how that goes. So, quarterback, we have Josh Allen at 9,000, Patrick Mahomes 8,500 against Green Bay, and Lamar 8,300 against Minnesota. I'm wondering when Mahomes is going to start going down in price. So you can see his last 4 games. It's just people are figuring out Kansas City. Just saying. Josh Allen, very good matchup against Jacksonville. Mahomes, rougher matchup against Green Bay. Lamar, really good matchup against Minnesota here. Kyler Murray did pop up as non-participant in practice today, but it's a huge divisional game against San Francisco. 8,200, it's a good matchup there. Aaron Rodgers would have had an amazing matchup against Kansas City. Dak actually has a decent matchup. It's not one of the greatest for the pass game, but it looks like Dak will play this week. Jalen Hurts against the Chargers. That's a little rougher matchup for Hurts. Herbert against Philly, I think it's a great matchup, and he's 7,600, very cheap. Joe Burrow, also 7,600 against Cleveland. Very good divisional matchup there. Derek Carr against the Giants, I think it's a very good matchup. Kirk Cousins against Baltimore is a little rougher for Kirk Cousins. Daniel Jones against Vegas, I think is going to be rough depending on his wide receivers. Tua against Houston, great matchup there. Jimmy Garoppolo, I believe, is going to be the starting quarterback. They have Trey Lance at the same price, just for safe measures. But it's a little rougher matchup. Teddy against Dallas, another rough matchup for him, although he does have a healthy wide receiver core, so it might make it more likable. Sam Darnold against New England, rough matchup. Sam Darnold has been playing terrible. And then you get the New Orleans quarterbacks, Trevor Siemian, Taysom Hill. Jameis Winston is done for the season. So Taysom Hill at 7,000 I think is going to be very, very interesting. Very cheap for a quarterback on Fanduel, and a great matchup. And then you get Tyrod Taylor. Looks like he will be in against Miami in a very good matchup for him. Matt Ryan against New Orleans, very bad matchup. Baker Mayfield against Cincinnati, good matchup for Baker. Unless you get Mac Jones and Trevor Lawrence. So something interesting, if Sam Darnold's out, you get PJ Walker down here at 63. I think that's a pretty good price there. Running backs, 2 running backs above 9K, Kamara and Eckler. Both great matchups in my opinion. Even Dalvin Cook, Aaron Jones, Zeke, Nick Chubb. Like, it's going to be it looks right now, barring any injuries, it's going to be a fun week for DFS. Like I said, 2 running backs above 9K, 3 above 8K. Nick Chubb right there at 7,600. But all these guys have great matchups, so it's going to be interesting to see who you get to roster. Saquon looks like he might be back against Vegas here at 7,500, but you are taking that risk of injury. Joe Mix against Cleveland, I think, is a rougher one for him. Going to have to see if Josh Jacobs is healthy. If he's healthy, he has a very good matchup here. Elijah Mitchell at 7,100. I think San Francisco running backs are going to have a difficult situation coming up, so you're going to have to watch it. Jeff Wilson should be back this week, and if he's back, you get Wilson, Hasty, and Elijah Mitchell for first-team reps. So it's going to be interesting there to see what San Francisco does to handle that. I think they're just every week is whoever the hot hand is going to get the ball. So, although it's in my opinion a good matchup, especially for a receiving back, there's too many chefs in the kitchen there basically. Chuba Hubbard, if McCaffrey is out, they said they're going to try to get McCaffrey to practice at 6,800. Against New England, he's not my more favorable matchup, but he does come with a price discount. Darrell Williams, I'm going to stay away just because of what I saw out of Gore. It's a great matchup against a Green Bay rush defense who is still bad, but Gore looked really good. Damian Harris, I would like to get to, but his price is just too high for a little rougher matchup. And then here's where the fun comes. So you get Melvin Gordon at 64 against Dallas, which the way him and Javonte split, it's not worth taking that. Boston Scott at 63. We saw him and Jordan Howard both crack the top 12 for running backs last week. So it's a great matchup against the Chargers' really bad rush defense, but you don't know who's going to get the ball there, so I'm probably going to stay away. Devonta Booker, you just have to watch the Saquon news. If Saquon plays, Devonta Booker obviously falls off. But if Saquon doesn't play, you get Devonta Booker at 6,300. Very cheap play here against Vegas. Kenyan Drake, you just have to watch the Josh Jacobs news. Even if Josh Jacobs plays, Kenyan Drake is still in play. They do split it quite a bit, but he's more of a GPP play. You go down James Conner at 6,100. The guy's a touchdown machine. That's what he gets is touchdowns. Not kidding. 3 games with 2 rushing touchdowns. He just gets all the red zone carries for the most part, basically. So, 6,100 for a guy that gets a lot of rushing touchdowns. Zach Moss you get at a very cheap price of $6,000 against Jacksonville, which is a very good matchup, in my opinion, against a very bad defense, and that offense is very efficient. Carlos Hyde is a player that you're going to have to watch for. Now, although it's a bad matchup for both James Robinson and Carlos Hyde, but if James Robinson is out and Carlos Hyde is their running back, you get a very cheap discount at a guy that's probably going to get a lot of volume at 5,600. Devonta Freeman for Baltimore is at 5,500, but you also take that risk of Latavius Murray there at 5,700. If Latavius is out for some reason, Devonta is probably a decent play at 5,500, but they do like to use all their running backs. And then last but not least, David Johnson at 5,300 is more of a GPP play just because of Burkhead actually got the majority of the carries and snaps last week, and David Johnson really got nothing. We already know Devonta should be back, but the thing is he's going to be Aaron Rodgers-less, so you got to take that risk if you're playing Devonta that he might not do much of anything. Tyreek Hill, 8,500 against Green Bay. Although Tyreek is a good play, in my opinion, Green Bay's pass defense has been really good for the amount of injuries there. Deebo Samuel, he's somebody you're going to have to watch the injury. That calf injury has been killing a lot of people this year. And if he's out for any reason, Brandon Ayuk becomes playable there. Jamar Chase, 7,900 against Cleveland. Jamar Chase is a touchdown machine. He's gotten a touchdown every week. Except one. I lied. 2. I lied. But he's got 7 touchdowns on the season. Him and Joe Burrow just have something special there. Marquise Brown, 7,700. Although I do like Marquise Brown, I think with Bateman and possibly Watkins both being there, there's just too many people, especially Mark Andrews too at that. Too many people there. Stephon Diggs, 7,600. I still think Stephon Diggs is a very good play no matter what, even if he's not getting you those fantasy points that he would normally get. He's still somebody that can get you 30 fantasy points in a game. He's that elite. Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen against Baltimore. After what I saw off Kirk Cousins and that team, they're just too expensive for me, in my opinion. CeeDee Lamb against Denver at 7,500. I think is a decent matchup. I love that secondary. They just haven't been playing to what I thought they'd be playing. But at 7,500, CeeDee Lamb, Mari Cooper, possibly even Michael Gallup. Just watching that dominant offense against Denver is going to be amazing. Mike Williams, 7,300 against Philadelphia, I think is a very good matchup for Mike Williams and both Keenan Allen. I'd probably go Keenan Allen more than Mike Williams here. Williams has easily been elite, but I always like that a cheaper wide receiver with the two. DeAndre Hopkins against San Francisco, 7,200. If he pops up fully healthy this week, I think DeAndre Hopkins is definitely a play that you should easily get. 7,200 is a very good discount on him. And you can look at his numbers this season, and it's nothing. It's like Stephon Diggs, basically. Like those two guys, elite wide receivers, like top 10 receivers in the league, talent-wise, and just fantasy-wise, they're not there. But it's that potential that they can get you 30-something points. And this is a game DeAndre Hopkins can easily do that, especially a big divisional game on the road. And they just lost last week. So DJ Moore, 7,100. I'd love to get to DJ Moore. I think DJ Moore is just amazing. Like he seems like the Allen Robinson, what Allen Robinson was last year, to where he gets those targets. He's going to get over 100 targets easy. But you look at the yardage, and it's really rough. And then you look at the touchdowns as well, 3. Carolina's just not scoring. They're not moving the ball efficiently. It's very hard to play them. And at 7,100, it's very good price there. But I just don't know with Sam Darnold anymore. Amari Cooper, same thing as CeeDee Lamb. I think it's a good matchup here against Denver. Brandon Cooks against Miami at 6,800. I think if Tyrod Taylor is back, Tyrod Taylor plays this game, Brandon Cooks at 6,800 is a steal. You look at the numbers that he had first 3 weeks. The first 2 weeks, he had Tyrod Taylor. Big numbers. Tyrod's in 6,800. Great play there. Cortland Sutton. I think Cortland Sutton, out of the 3 of Denver, Cortland Sutton's my favorite play here against Dallas, 6,700. We see how much yardage Dallas gives up. You just have to wonder what Teddy's going to do in this game. If Teddy goes back to how he looked in the beginning of the season, it should be a really good game. If Teddy goes to what he's done recently, it's probably not. But Cortland Sutton is my favorite of the 3 Denver receivers. T. Higgins goes up in price, and he should for what he's done the last 2 weeks. 9.7 fantasy points, 15 targets. Last week, 4 of 6 for 97 yards, gets you 11.7. Doesn't get you the red zone looks anymore. It looks like Jamar Chase has taken that over, but he's still there in play. Emmanuel Sanders, Cole Beasley, 65, 63. I think all 3 of those guys are in play this week. Just whatever pricing you can get to. Sterling Shepard looks like he's going to be out. Christian Kirk at 6,400, I think, is a very good discount if you don't want to play DeAndre Hopkins and want to play a reliable Arizona receiver. He's got targeted at least 5 times in the last 4 games, which is very impressive, especially with Zach Ertz being there. And he's also gotten some touchdowns there as well. So at 6,400, I think it's a good pay down if you want to get away from DeAndre Hopkins. And then the fun part, you get Devontae Parker and Jalen Waddle, 62 and 61 here in a very good matchup against Houston. Jalen Waddle, you look at what he's done recently, 24 points, 11 points, 4.9, but he still gets 12 targets. That's crazy. Good matchup here as well. Should have a more opportunity to get those receiving touchdowns. And you look at Devontae Parker, and Devontae Parker comes in and gets you 11 targets as well for 8 receptions, 85 yards. It's going to be interesting to see of how they handle that pass game. That pass game should be elite. It should be one of the best, getting Will Fuller, Jalen Waddle, and even Mike Gesicki. They're using him quite a bit. So I think that's interesting as well. Marvin Jones against Buffalo, I don't love it at all. Kenny Golladay, if he's in, I still don't like it. The price is good, but I don't like that matchup. Jarvis Landry against Cincinnati, I actually do like Jarvis Landry at 5,900 this week. Tyler Boyd, I usually stay away from Tyler Boyd. I go T. Higgins or Jamar Chase. Darius Slayton, I love to get to, but they didn't use him at all, and they should have against Kansas City. Jerry Jeudy, like I said, Jerry Jeudy I think is playable, but I do like Cortland Sutton. He gets targeted 4 times for 39 yards in his game back. I just like Cortland Sutton more. But he is in play 5,800. If you want to pay down for a Denver receiver, 5,800, he's there. Devonta Smith, I'm probably going to stay away from Devonta for a long time. He's killed my fantasy teams. Jalen Hurts just doesn't like to throw the ball to him. So, yeah. Russell Gage, I'd play, but he didn't get targeted at all, and he was on the field all the time. Obviously, you're not playing Henry Ruggs. And you go down, someone like Hunter Renfrow, 56, a very good, reliable guy to pay down to, 56 there. Tre'Quan Smith, 57 against Atlanta. Forgot to pass him. 57 against Atlanta. I think that's a good matchup there. It just depends on who that quarterback is for New Orleans. Will Fuller, I don't know if we're going to get him back this week or not. If we do, 5,500 for Will Fuller. It's crazy. We keep going down. Jacoby Myers, 5,500 against Carolina. I think it's interesting. We get Stephon Gilmore against his former team, but you look at Jacoby Myers, a pretty consistent guy on what he does, and just still will not get a touchdown at all. Odell Beckham Jr., 5,500 against Cincinnati. I believe with all the trade rumor news that we saw yesterday and him not get traded, 5,500 Odell, I love. It's not going to be one of the best matchups here, but I do think that there's going to be some chemistry that is built in this big divisional game. Brandon Ayuk down here, 5,500. If Deebo Samuel's out, you get a guy that should get a lot of targets here against Arizona. Good matchup at 5,500. So, Rashard Bateman at 5,400, and the last guy I'll talk about. There's obviously other plays down here that you could see, but this will be the last guy I talk about. Rashard Bateman, 5,400 here against Minnesota. 6 targets in both games, 29 yards in one, 80 yards in the other. I think that chemistry is going to keep getting built between Lamar and Bateman, so I think he's a reliable GPP play. Last, we'll do tight ends. Travis Kelsey, obviously tight end 1 on the season, 7,800. He doesn't have the greatest matchup for me. I do think they're going to have to rely on him a little more this week, but the numbers have just been all over the place for Kansas City and what they do. So, I mean, we've seen 6 of 4 for 23, 7 of 4 for 27, and then we see him get 10 plus targets, a lot of yardage, and a red zone look. So, I just don't like the matchup personally here. Mark Andrews against Minnesota, I think is a great matchup for Mark Andrews here. Darren Waller against the Giants. With Ruggs being out now, I believe Waller's volume should go back to what it was. Kyle Pitts against New Orleans. I just can't trust Matt Ryan. I just can't. Like we saw Kyle Pitts look like he was going to be the elite tight end. Good match, a bad matchup versus Carolina. 6 targets, 2 receptions, 13 yards, and Atlanta just didn't look good at all. It was ridiculous. Mike Gesicki is his numbers lately, I mean, pretty good for fantasy for a tight end. He is way too expensive though for me to play. Honestly, he could put up a 20-point fantasy game, and I'd be okay with losing that at 6,500. It's just a lot. Like you have Dallas Goedert here, 6,200. Dalton Schultz, 6,100. I like both of those guys. Dawson Knox, I still don't think we're going to see him play. George Kittle, they want to get him back. I don't know if he is. Noah Fant, I don't know if we're going to get Noah Fant either. So these tight ends are going to have to watch. Discounted price. Great tight end. So just going to have to watch all the injury news with these 3. Zach Ertz, 5,500 against San Fran. Think good matchup there. San Fran's got a very good linebacker core, so it might be rough for them, but they might rely on their receivers. CJ Ozuma is probably one of the least talked about tight ends for, what he's done lately. He's had two touchdown games. He had a game where 3 for 15 touchdown, but gets you 9 points. And the price he was probably at was pretty cheap. 22 fantasy points against Baltimore, and then only gets you 5.3 against the Jets. Minimal guy that you need a touchdown to actually get fantasy relevance or be an elite tight end for your team. Tyler Conklin, pretty consistent in the last 2 weeks of numbers. But yet again, someone that you need to get you quite a bit of points and probably isn't. Jared Cook at 5,200 and Dan Arnold at 5,100. I both like these plays this week. I think Dan Arnold is a guy that's going to keep getting more and more volume as games go on, and they need to stay competitive. He's just very reliable at the tight end position, and Trevor Lawrence likes his tight end. Jared Cook, great matchup against Philadelphia. So for me, that's it. Like, you could look at Tommy Sweeney at 4,700 for a possible play if Dawson Knox is still out, which probably will be, but if Dawson Knox plays, he's out of play. So that is the first look on FanDuel, guys. Like I said, it's a very good matchups in my opinion this week that we get to get. None of the spreads are really that crazy either. So yeah, hope you guys did enjoy this video, and we'll see you in the next.